All right, veuillez vous lever. The International Criminal Court is now in session. La danse à la Cour pénale internationale est ouverte. Please be seated. Veuillez vous asseoir.
Yes, good morning all. Appearances from the victims' representatives, same as yesterday?
Yes, same as yesterday, but just allow me, it's the last day of our intern, Noor Mohammed, the one sitting in the middle, and her support has been immense, and
Right,
I'm very
thank you.
grateful.
Yep, prosecution. Same as yesterday?
Morning, Madam President. Morning, Your Honors. Yes, we don't have Ms. Sabo with us today, so it's myself, Edward Jeremy, and Claire Sabatini. Thank you.
Right. And defence?
Madame la Présidente.
Your Honour, same composition as yesterday, thank you.
Yes, so no Mr. Edwards today either. Okay. Yes, thank you very much. Sir, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Okay, well, it's all rather odd. Never mind. As we said yesterday, you're going to be further questioned by Mr. Shah, and it's anticipated that you'll complete what you have to say before the break at 11 o'clock. But if you want a break at any stage, please don't hesitate to say so.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honors. Good morning, sir. How are you doing today?
Answer. Good morning. Thank God I'm fine.
That's very good to hear. Firstly, I just wanted to compliment you on the pace of your testimony yesterday. I think that was a very good pace, and I hope the interpreters appreciated that. So if you can continue at that pace, that would be very good for the interpretation.
Answer. Yes, I will speak in the same way that I spoke yesterday.
Second, I wanted to remind you that we are in public session. So just remember not to mention the names of any other individuals or the name of the camp that you live in.
Shukran.
Answer. Thank you. Okay.
Now, yesterday, you had spoken to their honors about the attack on Bendizi on 15 August 2003, which you described as the day of the misery. You also told us about your arrival in Mukhtar and the reunion with your family. And you also mentioned the very difficult living conditions in Mukhtar.
No.
Yes.
Now, we understand that you eventually arrived in Chad. But how long, how many weeks or months did you spend in Mukhtar?
Answer. In Mukhtar, I spent approximately 6 months. Because on the 9th month, 10th month and 11th month, so September, October, November, as well as January and February and March. These are the months that I spent at the camp. And afterwards, I started trying to leave Mukjar. And then I left. And I went towards Bindisi again. And from Bindisi, I escaped to Dukun. And afterwards, I attempted to enter Chad, and I did. And I entered through a village called Rutrud. However, before exiting Mukjar, I was arrested. And I spent 21 days in detention with the Janjaweed. Afterwards, I was extracted or released by the civil administrations. And on the second and the third month, February and March, the Janjaweed groups besieged Mukjar and they were aiming at attacking the areas in Sindhu. At this point, I was afraid and I fled from Mukjar. And I kept going until I reached Dukun, and then I entered Rorod in Chad.
Thank you so much. And when you escaped from Mukjar to Chad, did you leave by yourself, or did any of your family or any other persons accompany you? And please, again, don't mention any names.
Answer. When I was fleeing, nobody from my family members was with me. However, I fled with my colleagues. We were 3 persons. When we arrived to the area of Kabar, we found that the command of the Janjaweed was there, or there was a troop from the Janjaweed. One of us 3 was arrested or detained, and 2 of us escaped and reached Chad.
And how long was this journey from Mukjar to Chad? How many days or weeks did it take?
Answer. The journey to Chad lasted 5 days. It was during the night. We were moving at night only. So every night we were running in order to cover the largest or the longest distance possible during the night. Because when the sun rises, it would be difficult for us to move around, or it's possible that the Janjaweed would see us and arrest us. Therefore, all our movement took place at night or during nighttime.
And the camp that you live in now, have you lived in this camp since 2004, since your arrival in Chad?
Answer: yes. Since 2004 up until today, I still live in this refugee camp. This refugee camp of Darfurians in Sharijat.
And when you arrived at this camp, what did it look like? Were there already people living in this camp?
نعم.
Answer: yes. When I arrived, there were already Darfurian refugees who had arrived before me. However, they were settled in several locations. I also found or met there some people from Bindisi and the neighboring villages present in that camp. However, they had arrived before me.
And from what tribes or ethnic communities were the persons in the camp?
Answer: from the Fur tribe, from the Masalit, Dajo, Tama, and Borgo.
Just a rough estimate of how many people were living in the camp when you arrived there?
Answer: it was a large number. There were several blocks in the camp, and I found approximately 16 blocks, and in each block there were approximately 1,000 persons. Therefore, I can say that the number was approximately 16,000. And I can say that maybe there were 17 or 18 blocks.
Equal number of men and women at that time, or was there a difference that you could notice in the number of men versus women and children as well?
Answer: there was a difference in the numbers, and women and children were the majority.
Camp now for almost 19 years, closing in on 20 years perhaps. And how many people, again, roughly, live in the camp today in comparison to when you arrived in 2004?
Answer. In our days, in the camp, approximately 45,000 people live there.
Were you provided with any housing? Where did you live?
Answer. Yes, when you arrive to the camp, there are organizations and the National Committee for the Registration of Refugees. So you would be registered and you would be given a place to live with a tent. This tent would be your home.
Did you live in this tent by yourself, or were you living with other people in the tent?
Answer. In reality, when I arrived to the camp, I found my maternal uncle there. So I requested the organization to put me together with my family. So I joined my family. However, the tent that I was given, it was only for me, and I alone was sleeping in it. Because the tents are distributed based on the number of families that are present.
As regards food and water, what was the situation when you arrived in the camp?
Answer. When I arrived to the camp, I found that there were organizations that were performing humanitarian work by providing food and water. In fact, they were distributing food for every person of us.
Were you receiving? If you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Answer. The food that we were given was composed partly of corn, oil, haricot or beans, salt, and to get more, we had to make effort and look for a job in order to get more. However, the quantity of food that the organization was providing us was a small quantity. It was barely sufficient for 1 week. However, this portion was given to us to cover 1 month.
And were there toilet facilities and places where people could wash themselves?
Answer: yes. There were toilets, but they were not enough. The camp was divided into sectors. Each sector had its own toilet. And there was a large number of people using one toilet. Moreover, when this toilet is full, some people used to go to the toilet outside.
And what about healthcare facilities? Were there any clinics available if you needed medical treatment or medicine, for example?
Answer: when it comes to healthcare, I can say yes, there were health facilities that used to provide treatment. However, they were not sufficient, and the treatments were only targeting specific diseases. So if a person needed surgical interventions, the specialists in this field were lacking back then. Therefore, we found that most people who had difficult diseases died.
Now, sir, I'd like you to now compare the situation in the early days of the camp to the situation now. These various things that you've just talked about: food, water, the sanitary facilities, and the health care. If you can compare the situation now to the situation you've just described in 2004 and the early days of the camp.
Answer: concerning the current situation in the refugee camps, I can say that the situation is different. In the health field, you could find that organizations stopped providing their support, and the healthcare facilities collapsed. So, in the hospitals, there aren't any medication. Only doctors are available, and they can diagnose your disease or tell you what type of pain you suffer from. And then they would tell you to go and look for a medicine yourself. So currently, the health situation is dire, and most patients are ill, and the refugee quality of the people does not give them the right to get any to get the right for healthcare. When it comes to food, during the first years, we were receiving some sort of support. However, in the last few years, no food is being distributed to refugees in the camps. So any person have to rely on himself in order to get food. And nowadays, in our camp, it has been 1 year and a half since we've last got any aid or assistance from the organizations. They say that the reason is that we do not receive any support. So we are not entitled to any support, and therefore you see that most refugees have to do very hard work in order to get their livelihood and the livelihood for their families. So some of these refugees work in farms, some others work in bringing wood, some other work in bringing straw. Some other people go to the neighboring villages and cities hoping to find a job in order to be able to feed their families. Young people who are capable of doing so escape from the camp and try to seek a better life elsewhere. Some of them go work in gold mines. In fact, life now in the refugee camps is not the same as it was at the beginning. Now we live in a miserable condition, more miserable than the condition we lived in before. Because there's malnutrition. We all suffer from malnutrition. All our children suffer from malnutrition, and our women are dying because of malnutrition when they are in labor and before that. So this is concerning the health and food situation in the refugee camps.
عن التعليم.
Sir, I'd like to ask now, in the camp, and we understand that you would have been around 20 years old when you arrived in 2004, and that you were not married at that time. Are you married now?
Yes, I am married now.
Tell us about your marriage ceremony. How was that, and how would it have compared to what would have happened if you had been married back in Bindisi in normal circumstances?
Regarding marriage ceremonies, when I got married, there was barely any. Because you can only celebrate when you have your family around you, when you have your people and your friends around you. This is how we can celebrate and be happy. It is true that one can be happy with the fact that I was able to get married. However, it wasn't a celebration as such because we had deep sadness inside us.
And do you and your wife have any children?
Yes, we had 5 children, 4 girls and 1 boy.
And how old is your eldest child?
Um, 13. I think he's nearly 14. That's the eldest. And my second child is 11. And the third, I think he's 8 or 9. Well, let me say that again. The eldest is 13 to 14. And then the second is around 11. The third is 8. And the fourth is 4 years old. And the fifth is 2 years old and maybe 2 months.
And for those of your children who are old enough, are they able to attend school?
Yes. We can say that the 4 older children go to school. But in my view, this school is not a proper school as such. They go and they come back, but the school really needs a lot of the basic educational services. So we call it a school, but it is not a proper school in any way. So I can answer by saying yes, they do go to school.
And what sort of additional resources are needed, if you can give us some examples?
Well, it is important that we provide a child with a proper educational environment. I'm talking here about the classrooms, the uniform, the books, and food supplies. But all what we are concerned about really is the food. We just want to provide food for our children. So the child is only thinking about how he can find food and clothes to cover his body. So going to school is not one of the priorities for our children. And that's why most of our children do not care that much about education. They say, I don't have even clothes. My mother and my family can't provide me with books for school. So the child thinks in that way. I don't have any food at home, so how can I go to school? And that's why I think that we need to provide those children with their basic needs. Then we can talk about education.
And are you responsible for paying any school fees or any other costs so your children can attend this school, which is, as you said, very lacking?
Yes. I have to pay school fees, of course. In their different years. So if the child is in the primary school, then you pay the fee for primary school. It's different from the fees for the middle school. And if your child goes to secondary school, you have to do the same, pay whatever is required for secondary school. But in all cases, education in the camps relies mainly on your financial situation. If you have the money, you can pay for your children. And thus they can acquire education. But if you don't have the money, you work very hard just to put food on the table for them.
And once you had arrived at the camp and settled there, were you able to find any work yourself?
Yes, after I arrived in the camp, We found that the camp needed a place for education, and there was no one doing this job. Obviously, we did not have the qualification of teachers or required to be teachers, but as I mentioned, when the war started, I was in my 8th year at school. So I worked as a teacher for my community. I was trying to help my community learn and acquire some kind of education, and that's what I did. I spent my entire life working as a teacher.
And how many students would be in your classes usually? How many students would you teach, and would it be boys and girls you were teaching?
In our classrooms, I think we have about 50 to 60 and sometimes up to 70 children in each classroom. Some classrooms will have 100 children in them. And we have mixed classrooms, meaning by that boys and girls study together.
And what sort of subjects were you teaching to the children?
I teach geography, history, and English.
And the money that you earned as a teacher, was that enough to survive on in the camp and support your family?
In the beginning of doing this job, we did not have a salary at all. Well, an organization came and they paid us a salary, but the salary is not enough. However, we are considered as leaders in our community. If we are going to think about how much money we earn from this job, we're not going to teach our children a single letter. So that's why we did not worry much about salaries. We were providing our children with this service with the hope that they can benefit from this education and others benefit from their education as well.
And are you still teaching today? Are you still a teacher?
No, I am not a teacher right now. I left teaching for 1 year. I was working as a teacher the entire time, but in 2022, I left teaching. And I started working in farming. The reason for that is that I felt that I have taught a big number of people in our community, and I needed to support my family in a better way, especially that the salary that I used to get from teaching was not enough. So that's why I decided to leave teaching and find another job in the hope to help my family and support them better.
And where is the land that you farm? How far away from the camp is this land?
The land that I rented is about 3 to 4 hours from the camp. Well, depending on how fast I go. I obviously go there on foot. So if I'm walking fast, it takes about 3.5 hours. If I am going a little slow, then it takes up to 4 or 4.5 hours. So it's really far from the camp, but I have to go and work there.
And why is there no good land or usable land that is closer to the camp?
The land around the camp is finished. I mean by that, it's not fertile enough. Because it has been used for farming for the last 20 years, over and over again. So some people do farm these pieces of land, but you don't get good crops out of it. So all the land that are close to the camp are also very expensive to rent. So I couldn't afford to pay for any of these lands. Also, in our camp, we are surrounded by herders. I mean by that, tribes who herd cows. They are Arab tribes. So we face a lot of problems during harvest time. So for our own safety and to avoid any troubles, we try to go as far as possible from the camp. So there is no tension whatsoever between us and them. Nonetheless, the tension still happens. As refugees in eastern Chad, we always have this kind of tension.
And could you tell us a little bit more about how the farming process works? Since the farm is so far away, if it's 3 or 4 hours, Does that mean you have to stay at the farm during the farming season, the harvest season?
In general, the distance that I mentioned, this is for me personally. Some people go even further than that. Some people travel for 2 days, and some travel for 1 day, which means they have to stay in their farms. And when they go there, they finish their work, and the family splits into 2 parts. Part of the family stays in the farm, and the other part goes back to the camp, so that they keep an eye on their house and their belongings. And if you have no family that can help you keep an eye on your house and also your farm, then you can be subjected to attacks on your farm, and that's why you have to pay someone to look after the farm, which means that the money that you get from harvesting your crops, you will have to pay to whoever is looking after your farm. And that's why most of the refugees, especially in the current time, they are getting ready to move. Starting from May, we move to the farm and we clear the land and we build places from straw and plastic to protect us from the rain. And we start farming. We grow beans and sesame seeds and black eye beans. That's how we practice our farming as refugees.
So do your children, for example, come with you to the farm, or do they remain at the camp?
أطفالي يذهبون معي.
My children go with me. Because until this moment, right now, as I speak to you, they might be in the farm right now, cleaning the land.
And you've mentioned that the farming season starts in May. So how long do you have to remain at the farm? How many weeks or months?
People sometimes stay up to 4 or 5 months because the harvest season starts in November and December maybe. So whether you stay in your farm or go back, it all depends on the time of harvesting your crops. So if you start growing or cultivating early, then you can harvest early. If you start late, then you harvest late. And it also depends on how clean and ready your land is for farming.
And when you're out on the farm for this amount of time, are there any difficulties or dangers from, say, insects or wild animals, anything like that?
Of course, there are dangers and threats. The dangers from animals, of course. So there are lions and other types of dangerous animals, because the area where our camps are built are in forests and border areas connected to other countries. So we had an incident of a person got attacked and people saved him. But because people are usually very scared of wild animals, they try not to go out at night. That's regarding dangerous animals. As for attacks, so yes, we also get subjected to attacks from other people. So, for example, if you have daughters and you leave your daughters in the farm and you go back to your house and you have to travel for 2 days, those girls get sexually assaulted. So some girls get threatened and some get raped. So we have a lot of difficulties, really. But we try our best to overcome these difficulties.
And is it the case, sir, that you keep some of the crops for your family for food and you sell some of the crops?
Answer: yes. As I said, I plant corn, haricot beans, and beans. So we keep the corn in our homes. And from the beans, we make oil. And we keep some of the haricot beans as food. And we also sell some of the sesame seeds and the beans in order to buy goods for our children, such as clothing and shoes. Despite that, the quantities would not be sufficient to buy all these things. However, we divide our crops into two parts. One part to eat, to feed ourselves, and the other part to sell and to acquire or to buy the goods that we need, such as clothing, salt, and others.
Sir, I'd like to go back to the topic of education. And you explained to their honors that you had finished the 8th grade when you had to flee Bendisi, and that you became a teacher in the community yourself once you arrived at the camp in Chad. Did you ever have the opportunity to continue your own education?
Answer. After I arrived to Chad, I was given the chance or the opportunity to get some education. In 2007, I don't remember the exact year, but I think that was in 2007. That was when an organization came and this organization said that it would like to help students who did not complete their secondary education. And I was among the students who were nominated to be chosen and students were selected based on an exam. So I took this exam and I was among those who were selected to continue their secondary education. This organization is called the Global African University. When they came, they provided us with books. They gave us all the subjects that were covered in secondary education. And they told us that our education will be remote education, and what we had to do is that we had to exert our own efforts and read these books and these material, and then the organization would submit us to exams in 2 phases. The first phase and the second phase. If you pass these 2 phases, the organization would give us a certificate indicating that we have completed our secondary education. I exerted personal efforts, and with the help of some friends and brothers, I was able to be granted this certificate that is called the Certificate of the Global African University. So this gave me a motivation, and I became a bearer of a secondary education certificate through this organization.
Now, I understand that you were also able to continue your education some years later and attend a university. I don't want you to mention in public the name of the university or the program, the area of study that you pursued, but I did want to ask you a little bit about that. How long did that process take, and how was it that you were able to go to a university?
Answer. In 2012, and when it comes to my university studies, there was an educational grant that is called the Motivation Grant or Scholarship. So they were selecting some people from each camp. So I had to sit for an exam, and then I was selected to go to the university, and I did go to the university where I studied for 3 years. So 3 years to get my bachelor degree.
Your high school degree and your university degree in very difficult circumstances. And perhaps this is a little bit, you'll find this to be a little bit of a strange question, but why is it that education is so important for you?
Answer. Education is the future. I was totally aware that through education, I could change my life and others' life. And through education, I could help others as I could meet and sit together with different populations, and that is through education. We also have a famous saying that goes as follows: life is built with education, and also death is built with education, or our ending. And without education, we'll not be able to make any progress. So this was a strong belief. And I believe that through education, I could treat all the wounds that I suffered from or that my community suffers from.
And sir, if you're able to answer this question, do you happen to know, in the almost 19 years you've been in the camp, how many university graduates are there from the various refugee camps in eastern Chad over the past 19 years, to your knowledge?
Answer. The number of graduates is very low. I was from the first batch of people from refugee camps who got this the university degree. So it took me approximately 10 years to get this education or this degree, and the number of graduates is very low compared to the number of refugees and the population density of refugees. So this percentage, or this number that was between 7 and 8, is very low compared to the total number of refugees present in the camp.
I'd like to ask you now, sir, if you would like to tell or address the judges on this subject. What are your hopes for the future, and what hopes do you have for your children?
Answer. Just like other people wish. I wish for a life full of happiness and well-being. Because myself and other refugees wish to get good education, prosperity, and well-being for our children. I also hope that I can continue my journey and return to my homeland, to my home village, because no matter the difficulties that I might face, I have to continue and reach two phases in my life. I want to get a master's degree and then a PhD. I don't know when I would get such an opportunity. However, I am ready for this, and I'm dreaming of this. And in case I'm not able to get a PhD, I would like to get a master's degree at least. This is what I would like to tell the judges. I don't know if this was the last question. And if it was the last question, I would like to say in this regard and on this great day, I would like to say that as refugees, I've been a refugee for 20 years. I have been in a refugee camp for 20 years. So we lived all the tragedies in life. We did not know the true meaning of life. We only lived in dire situations. As a result, I spared no effort, and I overcame all the obstacles in order to come here and sit or stand before you and talk to you about everything I have been through and everything that the Darfurian people has gone through, especially the refugees and the displaced persons who were displaced because of this war. I would like to say that we like justice and we want justice. We want that all those who turned our lives into humiliation and suffering and exhaustion to be held accountable. We want those who destroyed us to be held accountable. These people destroyed our future and the future of our generations. And in this moment, I am presenting to you my voice and the voice of all Darfurian refugees present everywhere around the world. And I would like to tell you that we want peace. We want to return to our homeland. It's enough now. Today, we do not have any identity. On my identification card, they wrote refugee. I am stateless. I do not have any nationality to belong to. This means that I'm just a displaced person. I would like to return to my homeland. I want peace, and I want that all those who made our life miserable to be held accountable. And I would like also to convey the calls and the demands of my family and those who were damaged by this war. In fact, this war had impacted us and harmed us a lot. So I told you my story, but this is the story of refugees, and the story of each refugees or displaced person is different. We need compensations. We need to be compensated for every harm that we have incurred. And at this moment, allow me not to take too long. I would like to express to you my deepest gratitude and acknowledgement for what you are doing for the human beings and for humanity. We salute your efforts, but I'm unable to find any words to express to you how grateful and delighted I am because of what you are doing for others. All I will say is, may God be with you, and may God bless you and to be able to continue in this path, because thousands of people are waiting to hear your voice and to see your deeds. I would like to extend my gratitude also to those who helped me at the beginning that I have met. So when I was given the tent, there was UN written on this tent. When I was given oil, on the bottle of oil, the word UN was written. When I was given books, on these books, UNICEF was written. When I was given a bag, on this bag, EU was written. So I was wondering, what do these words mean? What do these letters mean, or these acronyms? Later on, it turned out, or I found out that UN stands for the United Nations, and EU means European Union. This is when I became aware that these people are those who saved our lives. They provided us with food, clothes, and water. Therefore, I would like to salute all the peoples of the European Union, the people of the United States, because their aid and their deeds supported us always, even if they did not know us or we did not know them. Therefore, I would like to extend to you my deepest gratitude on behalf of the Darfurian refugees and displaced persons. Thank you.
Thank you on behalf of the team of the legal representative victims for your willingness to come and appear before their honors. We are in your debt as well. Thank you. No further questions, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Shah. I take it the same applies as yesterday, no questions from any of the parties. So that completes what you have to say before us. I'll just check whether any questions. I think you've covered the events both during the conflict and your time in the camp very fully. We are very grateful to you for coming to court and undertaking, as we know, a long journey. And in due course, if appropriate, what you have described to us will be taken into account. So thank you very much, sir. And that concludes your appearance at this court, if you'd like to go with the court officer.
شكرا.
Thank you.
Mr. Shah, I didn't notice until this morning, but did he have papers with him?
I believe he was taking notes as I was asking questions. That's what it appeared to me.
I see. So it's not that he came to court with a pre-prepared statement that he was reading?
No, that's not my understanding, no.
Right. All right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yes. Right. Mr. Lauchi, you asked for an inter-parties status conference, which we'll do, but I gather we have to adjourn because the tape has to be changed or something has to be changed. So we'll take the half-hour break to 11:25, and then in the light of the topic, the status conference will be in private session. Yes, thank you.
Rise where you've living.